Good afternoon. We'll call to order the Finance Committee meeting for this August 13th, 2024. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lundy, Commissioner Durrett, Commissioner Oster, Commissioner Ward, Vice Chair Schoonmaker,
Here.
Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Beeler,
Here.
Commissioner Daly,
Here.
Chairman Jay,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier. Present.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the May 13th meeting. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak for a public forum related to the Finance Committee agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on and we will go to our team at the Knox County Schools for their report. Mr. Simons. If you would state your name and position and county of residence, please. And hit the button. You might have to pop the battery in the back there. Sorry. We didn't set it up for you, sorry. We'll now have Mr. Schoonmaker sing hold music for us until your microphone begins.
I think the room would bail out if that happened.
All right. No? Yes?
Let's see. Okay. Chris Simons, Knox County Schools.
Welcome.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm filling in for Ron. He had some other obligations, but you should have received a general purpose financial summary that we typically send each month or each time we meet. And then also just a brief summary sheet, kind of some favorable and areas of concerns and trends to watch. Just going through the financial summary at a very high level. I mean, this is as of fiscal year in 6/30/24. And these are projected. I will say there's still a few other numbers we're waiting on, but I'll try to project them out as good as I can. And they should be very close. But I will say, you know, all the revenues were good. We exceeded budget. And then expenditures, obviously, we didn't even hit. We still had some savings on the table, but a lot of that was due to unfilled vacancies. And you can see the percentages throughout the major categories there. Moving down to the bottom level, just the comparative of 6/30/23 and 6/30/24, you can see it's very much in line with what we had in last fiscal year. There was nothing glaring that stood out. We contributed to fund balance again this year, or we will contribute to it. Moving to the summary sheet, one of the favorable things we have on that sheet is, like I mentioned, our unrestricted fund balance is now around, it will be approximately 15 to 16% of our 2025 budget that was approved. So that's very healthy. Now, a part of that could be restricted as well, but there's still, you know, over $100 million that we would have sitting in unrestricted fund balance. Contributing obviously to our positive actual to budget was sales tax, but I will preface that with, you know, as we've spoken about before in the last several months, that it's pretty flat. We still are getting some, you know, growth year over year, but it's not as good as past years. So we're definitely seeing that number kind of flatten. Areas of concern, obviously future debt obligations, and then ESSER obviously going away this September. We tried to bake some of I didn't have ESSER on the sheet, but you know, ESSER 3 going away in September. We tried to, you know, our teams have tried to identify what worked, and we've tried to get that into our general purpose budget. Things like tutors and stuff like that. Trends to watch, economy, again, going back to what I mentioned about sales tax. That's that's something that obviously we're keeping an eye on. So is there any questions from anyone?
Any questions for our schools team? Commissioner Hill?
Do you have, not exactly your bag yet, but do you have an enrollment number for this school year yet?
We could probably get that number. Let me reach out to that team and see if I can get that for you.
Thank
Okay?
you, thank you.
Any other questions for schools? Mr. Schoonmaker? The other one. There you go.
Hey, it's working now. Just I want to say, great job on the balance of your fund balance. That's awesome to get to that high percentage. I don't think there's many school systems in Tennessee that have that figure.
Yeah, it is a very healthy number. I will say that our payroll can range, 40 to 45 million a month. So, that could be wiped out in 2 to 3 months pretty easily. So it is something we're glad we have. But I think county finance and us, we hope to get around 3 months of payroll coverage. So it is a great number, but you just hope it doesn't get wiped out at some point. So.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? When do you expect to have you may have said this, the next round of TISA information from the state?
We typically get it monthly. I think we got a recent one this last month, or in July. Actually, I think we might have gotten August. Let me check on that. And
Okay.
then, do you want me to send
Yeah,
something on
I
that?
mean, we always want to keep up with is the state continuing to follow through with some of its commitments, or does it do not so much, and, it's going to fall back on us?
And I believe TISA was higher actually than we had originally budgeted. So I'll get that number to you though, or get you some information on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? All right, thank you, Mr. Simons.
Thank you.
We'll move on our agenda to our trustee, Mr. Biggs. If you would join us at the podium, if you'd state your name and county of residence, and you all have 2 reports in your digital agenda.
Good afternoon, Justin Biggs, Knox County trustee, Knox County, Tennessee is my residence. Just to play off of earlier, we actually got the state money, and it was around 18 million, a little bit more over 18 million this morning for schools, for your previous question, if that's what you were asking. Okay, so favorable, just to hop right into it, we're still receiving a really good rate from First Bank, 5.65. We've been there for quite some time now. We have a money market account with Smart Bank, and it's drawing right at 5, which is pretty good. But at the end of the day, that 5.65, we think that that's going to stay around till the end of the year, looking at all the trends and how the market's going and everything. Pearl Mathis, the CFO for the Knox County Trustee's Office, reported on the 2023-2024 year and kind of all the interest that we've done from First Bank across all the way across the board. It's right about $9,000 short of $14 million. That does not include the ARPA accounts or anything like that. But we also did our Raymond James account, and it was $1.26 million worth of interest as well with them. Our collections are up a little bit over $7 million. And one of the things that I've always talked about whenever I've been here is our tax sale and the kind of money that we do there. Tax sale 24 collections, which we started in November of 2022. It's crazy that we've come that far this fast. Whenever I very first came here and talked to you guys about this, from November 2022 through the end of June, we did $9,338,000 prior to the sale date. So that means that the parcels that we started with, which was a little over 1,200, we did $9.3 million off those. And then on the day of the sale, this does include the city as well, but we did $11,054,448,000. I'd like to thank Commissioner Daly for coming to this sale. It was a all-day event. I did not have a voice at the end of the day, but it was the best sale that we've ever had, actually. We had a property come into our rebid sale. Those numbers are still being calculated. That you'll see that on August the 20th, tomorrow. Those numbers will be closed out. For the rebid sale, we had a property that started out about $70,000 in back taxes and was sold for $1.2 million over in the University of Tennessee. It was a 10-room student housing complex that was upset bid. The final bid the day of the sale was a little over $660,000, but the rebid sale that went to $1.2 million. So that's a record. I've never seen anything like that. It was great. Order of confirmations will be.
Can you just take a minute to explain the difference between the day of bidding and then what happens afterwards?
Okay, so sorry about that.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is we send out a notice of the sale. You come to the sale. It was housed at the Grand Event Center this year because we ran out of room here. Fire code, we could not hold it here in the city county building anymore. And it was a little over 800 people that was at the sale. We auctioned them off. And so I'll auction off the properties actually myself, and it starts at how much the taxes are owed, not at what the property is appraised for. And so let's say that the taxes are $20,000, and let's say that Kyle ends up buying it for $100,000. After that, you have 10 business days to do what's called an upset bid. What an upset bid is you come in and you increase it by a specific percentage. Once you meet that specific percentage, it goes back into our upset sale. It comes back in here and we call it the rebid sale. That gives people an opportunity that either found out about the sale or they basically came in late or they were trying to do, something else and missed the window by state statute to come in for the rebid sale. That's a statute. It's not just Knox County. And so after the upset bids or the rebid sale goes on, we have to enter in everything through the orders of confirmation, and that date would be tomorrow whenever all that's finalized and complete, and that starts the exact date for what we would call the redemption period. The redemption period is if you're 2 to 5 years delinquent, you have 1 year to redeem your property. If you're 5 to 8 years delinquent, you have 6 months. If you're 8 years or more, it's 90 days. That was changed in statute a few years ago. We started using that last year in tax sale 23. We're using it we just use it in our sale in June in 24, and we'll use it in 25 next year. Everything used to be a year. So what a redemption is, if anybody wants to know what a redemption is, that means that the property owner can come back and they can redeem their property, which means they can pay the property taxes back plus the penalty, which is right around 14% on top of your property taxes. That money set aside, that's called the excess proceeds, into a side account, and then that money is reimbursed to the bidder from the tax sale. I hope it's probably clear as mud, but I'm
No, it's a process by which people get multiple bites at the apple, and then
Yes.
also the property owner, if all things aside, something happened and they have a chance at the 0 hour to come back in and make right, they have a chance to do that as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, Chairman, that's correct. Only thing during that time that you can do to the property is for security measures. If I were to win the bid and my redemption period's not up, I can't come in and put in new windows and put in a roof, and the property owner, if they redeem it, have to pay me back. You cannot do that. Now, if there's a hole in the roof and it's going to rain and it's going to affect the structure, or the windows are busted out, or we're worried about vagrants coming in and doing something to the property, you can do specific measures, but you can't go in and start rehabilitating the property or building on the property until your redemption period is up. We have had that happen in the past, I'm sure, as Director Boot could tell you. But it's pretty cut and dry. There's specific things you can and can't do. We're one of the only in the state of Tennessee to hold a tax sale in person. And we looked at doing an online tax sale, but actually our numbers are way higher than any other county in the state of Tennessee because we do hold it in person. It's a little bit more work, but we have a very high rate of return on that, where the others like Shelby, they hold 4 tax sales a year. We don't have the manpower to do that. I wish we did. But Shelby, the majority of the parcels that are in Shelby County are actually bought back by Shelby County, and it's under the Shelby County government. Here, I think we had 24 properties that had to come back to Knox County. Reason being, I would say on about 95 of those, people look at the appraisal, let's say, and it's an easement that is between two neighbors, Commissioner Beeler and Commissioner Daly. Let's say that codes had to come out there and clean it up, and it's a $10,000 piece of property, but given all of the details that's on that property, it's got a $25,000 tax note on it. Well, they're going to let that go to Matt and Ben over at procurement, and they're going to start that out at what's called the surplus sale about a year from now. And those bids start at about $750 to $1,000, and you're going to be able to get that property between the two neighbors, and they're going to be able to take that and do whatever they want with it and probably keep it cleaned up like they have for 10 years until it finally went to the tax sale. And so there is another component for us that it's out of our hands, but you will see that at the surplus property. Mr. Sharba can tell you, I think they did $1.3 million in the last surplus sale. And that's whenever it's final, it's over. So I know it sounds like a very long, lengthy process, and it is. But that's kind of where I'm at. I will say that I know I told you guys that tax sale 24 was the largest tax sale that we've ever had, and that is true, but tax sale 25 is next year, and it will be the largest tax sale that we've ever had in Knox County history. I was speaking with Mr. Graham at the Grand Event Center. We actually met capacity at the Grand Event Center, so we're going to be moved out into the main auditorium, and so they just get larger and larger. They are very well attended. The Knox County Sheriff's Office came out and provided security. You know, $11 million is the top. We've never seen that here. So everybody's coming to Knox County and really trying to hop on that. Sorry, I got totally distracted. Okay, so tax sale 25. I've already went over that. We started sending out title work right at a month ago already to the different title companies that we use. Attached. Chairman Jay did like the 6-year comparison, and we have attached the 6-year comparison. If you go over that, you'll see just in 2 years, we've nearly went up $100 million in our totals and balance. I would like to give a huge shout out to Linda McGinnis and Pearl Mathis, just because we came together and we decided that we would keep the it's not BEP. I literally just said it. I did this at orientation too. TISA. We kept the money over in LGIP for TISA so that we didn't see that huge initial hit whenever May and July rolled around to meet the school's payroll needs. And that was not me. That was them. It was a genius idea. They did a really good job at that. Next, you're going to see unfavorable. We're seeing a lot of things like retail and food service. They're struggling to make a profit. Red Lobster, Megabus. I think everybody remembers Megabus from years ago. We don't have them here anymore, but it was the tours that were going back and forth to D.C. Filed for bankruptcy across the state of Tennessee. Luckily for us, not here, because we entered into an agreement a year ago with American Financial, AFCS, sorry, where we started going after our personal property. Redbox has gone out of business, and trustees' offices across the state are having a horrible time getting their money. Where you guys decided to let us do that in the trustees' office, Knox County was one of the first ones that got their money. Now it's not happening everywhere else. So that wasn't a me thing. That was a you guys thing for allowing us to be able to do that in that company. Trends to watch. I've already spooled it. We're watching the market to get the best possible rates on our investments. We're trying to do that to make sure that we do it before the rates start to drop. Right now, we're in about that 4.85 to 4.95 is where we're at on 2 to 3 years. We don't like to do callables. We only do non-callables. But with our overnight money at 565, we've not really found anything overly comparable. We found some stuff over a 5 that we've taken advantage of, but given the unemployment rate and everything else and all the trends with the Fed, the numbers that we're being told aren't going to start to drop until the end of the year. So we're actively searching. Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Schoonmaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On your 6-year comparison chart for April 30th date, The the fifth item from the bottom, the Raymond James bond account. In April of '23, we had $6.5 million invested with them, and in April of '24, we have over $70 million invested with them. What kind of rate of return are we getting on that money?
That's whenever you saw the switch for us to prepare for the May and July amounts for the BEP. That's whenever we switched that over because we went over our ICS account limit that we have with First Bank. Not to speak ill of them, but we've hit our limit with them. And so they basically called, not from here, but from Nashville. It's not anybody here. And they started talking about they were having some issues. Then we talked through them, and then we went outside of the box and started thinking of what we could do through opening up a $75 million savings account that bared the exact same dollar amount that we could draw off of and things of that nature. But we also took some of the money, which was around $70 million that we were over, and put it elsewhere for preparation for for TISA. I keep saying BP, I'm sorry, for the TISA that was going to be coming out in May and then again in July to make sure that we didn't have any kind of loss because it was right at the exact same rate, close to the rate.
Okay, and what is our limit at First Bank?
$245 million.
Okay, and so we had breached that by
Wow.
70 million?
No, by way more than that.
Okay,
Yeah, by way more than that. We were up in the fours.
okay, great, thank you, sir.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, trustee.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Mr. Caldwell, if you would join us at the podium, please state your name and county of residence. And commissioners, you have monthly financial report in your digital file.
Chris Caldwell, Knox County.
And Mr. Caldwell, if you would, as you go through, reference what page number you're,
Absolutely.
because you have more pages than everyone combined. So,
We will be going over the monthly financial update, which we sent out last week. If you go to document page 4, that's where we will start. It's the summary schedule as of June the 30th, which we're not completely done, so this will not be final, and there will be adjustments, but it does give us a period in time of where we are, so we can do some comparisons and then get more into detail related to that. So since Mr. Simons went over schools, I'll focus mainly on general fund. If you look in the 23-24 column, you will see that our revenues for the general fund was about $233.8 million compared to expenses of $227.3. It's about $6.5 million to the good. If you compare that to last year in 23, that difference was about 9.1. So that delta has shrank a little bit by about a third, which we talked about that would happen. And so we're seeing that. We do still have some revenue to accrue. And so I think that revenue number will go up a little bit. And just for comparison's sake, if you look at the FY25 budget, it was $231.1 million for the general fund. And of that amount, $5.5 million was from use of fund balance. So we have collected more revenue this year than what we had budgeted for FY25. So it gives us a little bit of cushion going forward. The only other thing on this page that I would point out is on the far right in the year-to-date column, if you look at the total revenues and operating transfers in, we're about $41.5 million more 24 over 23. But you go down to the bottom and look at the expenses, and that's about $60.7 million greater than last year. So that's a $19 million decrease from where we were a year ago. And so instead of being about 30 million to the good, we're about 10 million to the good when you look at all the operating funds. And so That's all I have on the summary schedule. Are there questions on this page before we go on? Seeing none, we'll go to page 6 now. So this morning I sent out, you may not have had time to look at it, but I sent out, we got June sales tax in, which we get in August. And so June sales tax, if you look and you compare it to the previous June, was basically flat. It was 0.44% up from the previous June, so that's just relatively flat. And so, but by doing this, it will enable us to look here. What you have on what I sent out would have gave you numbers through May, so I'm just going to kind of fill in a little bit. In your left-hand column under current amounts, the amount for June for the general fund was about 1.15 million. So if you look total, we would have collected $13,903,910 for the fiscal year in general fund. And that puts us about $403,910 ahead of budget. And so just looking at that, if you look at what trend was more correct this year as it relates to general fund, it was the prior year trend. One other interesting note, our budget for local option sales tax for FY25 is $13.6 million. So basically, we collected about $300,000 more than what we budgeted for in 25. Going on to page 7, this is the schools fund, kind of the same path here. The collections for schools was a little over $19,828,000. That would put them about $239 million on the year. It's about $13.39 million ahead of budget. And if you look at their budget for 25 is about $240.5 million. So they basically a budget flat for actuals from 23 to from 24 to 25. And if you go to page 8, engineering and public works, same thing here. About $834,000 for June collections, bringing our total up to $10,068,349. That's about $268,000 more than budget. And if you look at what the budget was for 25 is $9,825,000. So a little room there for engineering and public works. Any questions on sales tax?
Commissioner Hill?
Chris, did you say on the sales tax piece that we were approximately $500,000 ahead? Is that what I heard you say?
We were $403,000 ahead of budget.
Okay.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
in general fund.
Yeah, I'm sorry, in general fund. So how does, and if it's on here, forgive me, how does that compare with this time a year ago? Were we ahead or behind?
I think when you probably look at budget to actual, we're probably a little bit behind, but if you look from, because the budget was lower in 23 compared to what we got in, but if you look at actuals to actual, it's a little bit ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Going on to property tax, page 10 just gives a little breakdown of how property tax is as a whole. We collect property tax through August and accrue it back. So I'm going to give you some figures looking at current property taxes for the current year. There's not going to be on this page, but I just want you to hear some of these just to see how things are progressing. The budget for current property taxes, all funds in FY24 was $295,803,900. Through today, we would have taken in $299,595,235. So we're about $3.8 million ahead of budget. The per penny collected to date is about $1,928,000 per penny. So you look at that, that's more than, and budget, of course, and trending in a good direction. So numbers that I was looking at, if you look at total collections in FY22 is about $282.3 million compared to 23, $292.4 million. So that's about $10 million growth year over year from 22 to 23, which is about 3.57%. You look at growth from 23 to where we currently are in 24, that's about 7.1 million in growth, which is about 2.44% growth, which those are higher growth percentages than we would typically see. And so all that to say that from a budgetary standpoint, we're in a good spot on property tax. Trustee Biggs mentioned tax sale, and that tax sale happened at the end of June. It won't be completely settled until mid-September, but working with our internal auditors, Pew CPAs, our goal is to accrue that back to 24 because that's when that sale took place. And so we will work toward that. So we will see pretty substantial growth compared to what we're showing today in delinquent taxes and interest and penalties and things like that. So that number would definitely increase. Questions on property tax before we move forward to page 14, which is hotel motel tax. Hotel motel tax. So once again, on the handout that you have, it's through May. We got June's in today. That number for June is $1,264,424. So our total collections in hotel motel tax for fiscal year 24 is going to be $14,677,000. So that's about 4.1 million greater than budget, and still trending about level to where we were last year in hotel motel tax. So basically 2 years in a row where our total receipts and occupancy taxes are over $14 million. And so trending in a good direction there. Questions over hotel motel tax before we move on to wheel tax?
Commissioner Skidmaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it still around 120 properties that we collect hotel motel tax from? Does that sound
Yeah, I would say
about
it's probably about right. We don't see the detail like that. But I do know that occupancy rate and average daily rate from that standpoint is about what they were. So that seems to be consistent. So the property numbers, I would assume, have not changed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Wheel tax, page 15. If you look in the cumulative total column and go to the bottom, you will see that we collected $15,011,854 in wheel tax. That from an actual standpoint, so compare that to actuals of last year to actuals of this year, that's about $483,000 down, which is about a 3% reduction. But if you compare it to what we had budgeted for, we were ahead of budget by about $137,000, which is about 0.9%. So budget to actual, we were okay. Actual to actual, there was a decrease. And we talked about a while what could drive this. And I think some of it is you could have lack of people buying vehicles because of interest rates. That's one thing that can drive things like this. and, where you get your registration at and things like that. And so definitely, we bounced back a couple of months ago and gained some ground, but end up from an actual to actual standpoint being down in wheel tax from the previous year. Questions?
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know, Chris, we've talked about this in the past, that it seems like Knox County is a growing county in the state of Tennessee. So with more people coming in, and you would assume that registrations would be up, and in turn, wheel tax would be up. Do you think that when the state sends out those flimsy renewal cards, that most of them are getting misplaced, and a lot of people are running around Knox County without a renewed auto tag,
I'm
which
sure-
would in turn would reduce our receipts?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably some of that, right? I mean, if you don't think about it, oftentimes you may not go renew your tags, and then of course then that tax is not being paid. Then one day you look at the back of your car and you're like, oh, I'm a couple months overdue. And so I think that can happen for sure. And maybe too, we live in an age too where some people don't see the use of having a vehicle, right? So they commute everywhere, or they do Uber, or they do whatever, and I'm not built that way, but some are, and so there could be a reduction in vehicles that way. And so I think it's probably a combination of a lot of things that led to this.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask the clerk at some point about auto renew? I was just saying, maybe maybe the clerk at some point might look into auto renew setups where when you register a car, you're registering it much like other services where it automatically renews to a certain credit card or something every year, whether you know.
Yeah, that could be possible. It probably
Commissioner
is.
Beeler, would you like to weigh in on this?
I would, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've actually been part of discussions with Commissioner Schoonmaker and the clerk about this. And, we've researched this every way possible. And the short answer is we don't know why the collections are less. If you look at 2022, they are up from 2022, but there was a spike in 2023 that we don't see. I think it is a combination of several factors. You're right about the cards the state sends out. They're not near as effective as a reminder when they actually sent you a copy of your registration. That really reminded people to go get their tags renewed. That's been going on for several years, though. I don't think it would explain the one-year drop we've seen. Maybe the biggest contributing factor was that the state waived their portion of the vehicle renewal last year, which essentially was about $40 to renew. That included the wheel tax. It went up to $65 again this year. And you may have had some folks that saw it go up and thought, I think I'll put that off for a little while. That's certainly a possibility.
Do you think that the fact that other surrounding counties have virtually no wheel tax or very much reduced wheel taxes, than Knox County has a contributing factor, and Blunt and Anderson and other?
Well, I suppose it could.
I'm not sure
but-
if somebody
but,
would purposely buy a car one place or the other,
I mean, if they're a Knox County resident, they still owe the wheel tax. And we do. and we
assuming
do-
they do register it back here.
Right, exactly, if they come in. Again, it's difficult. It'll be interesting to see what FY '25 does, if it catches back up. But the truth is, it could be that there's a lot of people driving around with unrenewed tags. Unfortunately, the clerk's office doesn't have patrolling authority to see who that is and collect it, but the sheriff's office does, of course, and other law enforcement agencies.
Yeah, thank you very much. Commissioner Schoonmaker?
Commissioner Beeler, do you think by losing the collection point in the town of Farragut that maybe added a little bit to the issue, or?
I mean, it's not out of the question. I mean, I'd be open to lots of different explanations as being part of the formula. You know, that of course relates to an item that's going to be on our commission agenda as we look for ways to serve West Knox County better. The most populated part of our county has been a bit underserved by the one location that we've been trying to make work. So we'll talk about that at 3 o'clock, I guess.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Caldwell, or Commissioner Ward?
We delayed wheel tax in 2020 and 2021, correct? You didn't have to register your car, they extended it.
Yeah, there was a pandemic
And then they
holdover year or something.
Didn't that hold over till 22, and that's why you see the spike in 22 and then the drop off in 23 and then it
Not
picks
sure if
back
it
up
was a
in
whole
24?
year or-
I thought it was more than a whole year.
I don't know. Good question.
But that might be,
Imagine
because if
Mr.
everybody
Beeler will be looking
postpones
into
it to
that.
22 jumps, and then 23 falls back off to normal rate, and then you see it pick back up again in 24, would make sense.
Yeah, if I could respond, that's possible. That's a great point. And I think when we look at the 2025 collections,
Yeah,
8-9 months from now,
yeah, that would answer the trend.
and if it settles back into where we are now, that could be a real
'cause
big
you
part of
would-
the explanation.
Be lower in 2020 and 21, and then you would spike in 22, drop off back down to normal rates in 23, and then jump up again in 24.
Mr. Caldwell?
Page 16, just looking at courts, if you look at from year to year, all three of our divisions of court are ahead of where they were in '23. And so those are positive numbers. And as we got sales tax numbers in today, we also got the last month of business tax and gasoline tax. So business tax for the year for '24 went with a little over $16.5 million collected in business tax. The actuals is up about $798,000. It's about a 5% increase in business tax. From budget to actual is about $2.9 million. So a lot of room there that leads to our budget surplus is related to business tax. And then looking at gasoline tax, the last month of it came in for the year in '24 was a little over $7,177,000. That's about $77,000 ahead of budget, about $54,000 ahead of actual to actual, which is less than 1%, about 0.76% ahead of where we were a year ago on gasoline tax. And so ultimately, we now work to close the books as we wind down and start to prepare financial statements and prepare an ACFR. And so all the numbers that I've seen here today are subject to change because they're definitely not complete. And so because of the year that we had with better than anticipated revenue figures and the general fund, and then not expending all of the expenses in the general fund allowed us to bring a designation list to you all that was a little greater than even I anticipated. Still could be a little higher than we wanted it to be, but ultimately we're in a good spot. And so I think that helped with that. And so we can talk about that at 3 o'clock, but ultimately that's what led to that list. And so I'll stop now and answer any questions that you may have related to anything financial for the next 16 minutes.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mineral Sevens tax, do we now have a full year under our belts for collection of that?
Yeah, and it was, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was almost right at 500,000.
That's great. And that goes directly to engineering and public works.
It does, and a similar number, because I looked at this today, online gambling this year was about 500,000 that goes into the general fund. And so, that just came to me because I looked at it today, but still good. I mean, ultimately, it's up from a year ago, and so we happily take that.
Well, great. Well, I'm glad the collections are coming in
They are.
for the mineral severance tax. Thank you.
Any other financial questions for Commissioner or Mr. Caldwell?
Don't do that to me.
Sorry. All right, thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Any other new business to come to the Finance Committee? Anybody have any topics of note that they want added to the next Finance Committee meeting? Seeing none, without objection, this meeting is adjourned.